सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते ईशा गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते तप्त काञ्चन गौरांगी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Once more loudly. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So today is the auspicious day of the appearance of Lord Ram. In Trinidad, like practically everybody knows about Lord Ram. One of the most amazing things, like I've found over the years, is if we really look at it, I think almost in Trinidad, almost every single night, maybe not Christmas and New Year's, but other than those days, you could find some Ramayana satsang taking place somewhere in Trinidad. You know, especially in Trinidad, Ramcharitmanas is more popular. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami, after listing the descendants of the dynasty of Amshuman, he in 2 chapters summarizes the essential incidents that took place within the Ramayana. And he says that he tells Maharaj Parikshit, that you have heard about the pastimes of Lord Ram so many times. Like, it's such a common thing, like people glorifying Ram. And it's interesting, the influence of Lord Ram has spread significantly even outside of India. Even within India, there are many, many versions of Ramayana. The original Ramayana was composed by Valmiki Muni, who was actually a contemporary of Lord Ram. There's a version in South India by Kamba Muni. There's a very interesting history of that version as well. How Kamba Muni, in order for it to be considered an authentic telling of Ramayana, of the pastimes of Lord Ram, it had to be accepted by the Shaivites and the Vaishnavas. And there's an interesting history of how that came to be also. And even one of the reasons why it threw up at least one red flag in the community of Vaishnavas, but how have you described so many pastimes of Lord Nrsimhadev in this Ramayana? Where's Lord Nrsimhadev in Ram Leela? And it's described that Kamba Muni went to one temple of Nrsimhadev in South India, and he began to recite the Ramayana. And after reciting the pastime of Lord Nrsimhadev bursting out from the pillar, there was a loud sound that erupted throughout that area. And then they realized this is what was being narrated in that temple. So this Kamba Ramayana, this is authentic. In the North India, the Ramcharitmanas of Tulsidas Ji has become very, very popular. Composed in the Avadi language, the language that is spoken in Ayodhya, that has become very popular. And I think because of Tulsidas's contribution to the pastimes of Lord Ram, that Lord Ram's glories have been developed and appreciated throughout the world. Even in, I don't know if it's Thailand or Cambodia, one of these countries, like all the kings of that country are named Ram. They are given the title Ram. And in that country, it's the streets in that place are all named after different, characters in the Ramayana. It's quite interesting. I heard this actually from His Holiness Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj. He was speaking to some, I don't know if it was Bhakti Tirth Swami or somebody who was doing work in the African countries. They were speaking to one leader, in one tribal leader in Africa, and the topic of Lord Ram's pastimes came up. And the person actually said, he said, no, we are very familiar with Ram. We are very familiar with Ram. And the person was quite surprised to hear that they were familiar with Ram. And they, what do you mean? I said, we are Cushites. We are descendants of Cush, one of Ram's sons. And they were warriors. And they said, we are descendants of Cush. And there's actually a tribe in Africa known as the Cushites. And there's one funny story Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj was telling. When Visvamitra took Ram and Lakshman to protect the yajna, the two demons they had to wrangle with were Maricha and Subahu. And Subahu was killed immediately. But Maricha, he was hit in his chest with an arrow and thrown several hundred miles away into the ocean. And it is said that he landed in one place. And that place where he landed was named after him. Anybody knows what place that? I don't know if this is true or not. I just heard this. Where? Mauritius. It's not like that. I don't know if it's true or not. After Maricha landing there. So the Ramayana and the pastimes of Lord Ram certainly has an integral role in society. And I remember even as a child, like at that time I wasn't so much of a temple person or anything like that, but it was a tradition that to sit and look at Ramayana on TV. I think at that time it used to be on a Saturday afternoon. This Ramayana of Ramanand Sagar used to be on a Saturday afternoon, and on a Sunday would have Mahabharata, a Sunday evening, and that was like a go-to. And there's an interesting story of how even that telling of Ramayana had so much potency in it, and it created such an effect on people who would look at it that during the COVID lockdown, they decided to re-air the Ramayana of Ramanand Sagar in India. And as they were putting it out, and the advertisers would be streamed and such, and so many people tuned in to look at that streaming that all the servers crashed. And they had to get put additional resources in to allow for streaming. It's such a beautiful thing. Like people, they are so naturally attracted to Lord Ram. Like even now, I'll tell you quite frankly, if I hear good Ramayana singing, that does something. It really does something. And especially I am more old school in the sense that I have some very close friends who came from Triveni Temple, and I started my journey in the passing of Lord Ram with them. And like the older tunes of singing Ramayana somehow still have that effect. I find now sometimes it has become a bit more cinema style. Like somehow Bollywood has an effect on Ramayana renditions nowadays. Like so many sound effects and background, sometimes louder than the speaker, while he is trying to describe something about Lord Ram. But those older tunes, when you really listen to it, like it really does stir up a kind of emotion within the consciousness, which is what you want. When we chant the holy name of the Lord, it is not just about the excellence of it. it is meant to evoke feeling within the heart of the chanter. It's like Bhagavatam says, that if when one chants the holy name of the Lord, that tears do not begin to stream from one's eyes, that one's voice does not become choked up with emotion, that person, his heart is in a steel frame. And if we think about it, when we hear about something that our heart is someone that our heart is closely connected to, when we hear something about that person, some achievement, something, just even that person's name, you might just hear some people talking about that person, and you would hear them, you say, who is that you're speaking about? It creates some emotion within the consciousness. That is desirable. That is what we want. We want to experience that in relation to the Lord. We want to experience the sense of He is mine. We want that. We want to develop that sense of closeness, like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, when commenting on one of the verses of the Chatur Shloki, Matchita Madgata Prana Bhodayanta Parasparam Katayantascha Mam Nityam Tushyanticha Ramanticha. He gives a mind-blowing commentary to that verse. He says, like the verse says that the thoughts of my devotees, they dwell in me. And what they do, they delight in always speaking about me in the company of other devotees. This is the subject matter of the talk of devotees, about Krishna, about Rama, about the different pastimes and incarnations of the Lord. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that the devotee takes pleasure in hearing about and describing the pastimes of the Lord, just as a young boy and young girl take pleasure in each other's company. It's natural. It's completely natural. This is actually what we want to feel when we hear about the pastimes of the Lord. And you see that, like when you read Ramayana, you read how the residents of Ayodhya, felt when Ram was being exiled from the forest. Like practically speaking, he said, let everybody go except Dasharath and Kaikeyi. Let everybody go with Ram. We'll establish Ayodhya right there where Ram is going. You forget, it was so moving. When you hear, when Bharat goes, I forget the name of the sage that he went to, he began to question himself. Do I really love Ram? After Ram was exiled and he went with his entourage to meet Ram to try to convince him to come back. He went to the ashram of one particular sage. Tulsidas ji describes this very beautifully. He begins to question himself, do I really love Ram? Was I really complicit in Ram being banished from Ayodhya? And the sage there begin to glorify Bharat's love for Ram. When Bharat hears, not out of ego, when Bharat receives that reassurance that yes, indeed, he does love Ram, he faints out of emotion, being overwhelmed with love for Ram. So it's a rendition like that, and it's so pregnant with meaning. There's two verses that I cannot help but recite when you're speaking something on the pastimes of Lord Ram. And they are both verses in glorification of Valmiki Muni. And one of them is found in the Ram Raksha Stotram, and I haven't yet been able to find the source of the second verse. But it's two descriptions of Valmiki Muni that are completely opposite to each other. It's completely opposite to each other. And I find it very apt because it brings out, it gives us some insight into the nature of the pastimes of Lord Ram. What we as individuals can get, what benefit we can get from the pastimes of Lord Ram. And the first verse, which is given in the Ram Raksha Stotram, is Kujantam Rama Rameti Maduram Maduraksharam Aruhya Kavita Shakam Vande Valmiki Kokilam. And the second verse is Valmikir Muni Singhasya Kavita Vanacharinaha Shrinvan Rama Katha Nadam Konayati Paramgatim. That there's a very beautiful branch of the tree of Vedic literature. Just like in Srimad Bhagavatam, we hear that Dharma Projita Kaitavat Nigama Kalpadu Galitam Phalam. That the Srimad Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of the tree of Vedic literature. Well, in the tree of Vedic literature, there are many branches. One of the branches is known as Kavita Shaka, a branch of poetry. Another branch of the tree of Vedic literature that is composed of poetic renditions, there's a bird that is sitting on that branch. And the bird that is sitting on that branch is reciting the most beautiful poetry. And what is that poetry? Kujantam Rama Rameti. He is chanting the name of Ram, and he is chanting the glories of Ram. Maduram, Maduraksharam. And it is so sweet that when one listens to it, one becomes intoxicated. And who is that bird? Valmiki Muni. He is singing the beautiful pastimes of Ram. And the next verse, the same Valmiki, who is described as a beautiful, sweet-sounding kokila bird, is described as Valmikir Muni Singhasya, a great lion. Kavita Vanacharinaha. And he's roaring pastimes of Ram. Shrinvan Rama Katha Nadam, very loudly. And he said, when one hears this great roaring of the pastimes of Ram by this lion among sages, Konayati Paramgatim, one attains the ultimate abode, the abode of Ram. So Acharyas, they comment, how could the same person be described both as a sweet-sounding kokila bird and a ferociously roaring lion? And they say that when we listen to the pastimes of Ram, it's so sweet, it's so melodious, it stirs the heart. But when we understand the meaning that is being taught by this rendition of Ramayana, by the singing of Valmiki Muni in the Ramayana, then all the doubts, all the misunderstandings flee from one's heart, just as small animals flee in the forest when they hear the sound of the lion. And when those doubts and misgivings and misunderstandings flee from one's heart, one is able to attain proper understanding of Ram and delight in his pastimes. And by so doing, one attains the ultimate abode. So this is the nature of Ramayana. Not only is it very sweet to hear, but the meaning of it resounds very deeply within the heart of the devotee. And when we understand Ramayana, when we imbibe the teachings of Lord Ram within our own lives, then with every step we take in this life, we edge closer and closer and closer to the abode of Ram. So this pastime, which I want to describe a bit, I have been hearing since I just started, being in Ramayana satsangs and so on. I was describing recently that when I entered into my teenage years, I was going since I was small with my grandmother to the village temple, which was Triveni temple. I grew up in that village, and our teacher at that time Sriman Rampasar Raman Singh. This was one of his favorite pastimes. Like we went on maybe 10 Ramayana satsangs, at least 5 of them would be this pastime. You know, like it was, and to hear, man, one thing I appreciate now more than at that time was when you hear him describe this, like it was with such feeling. He really had, you know, like when he would describe this pastime, like it was such a, you could tell he was feeling something about it. It wasn't just performative. You know, it was something. And years later, one of the things I always wanted to do was to somehow get a copy of Valmiki's Ramayana. And we had different English retellings of it and, you know, summarized versions of it. But years ago, one devotee, disciple of Jayapataka Swami, he began a very important work. So what he did was render Valmiki's Ramayana just like Srila Prabhupada has rendered Srimad Bhagavatam. So there's the Sanskrit verse, there is the transliteration, there's the word-for-word meaning, and there's actually commentary that is based on the commentary of devotees from the Sri Sampradaya and the Madhva Sampradaya. Radha Gopinath ki jai, Jai ki jai. So it's based on that. The commentary of, I think, Vedanta Desika and another commentator from the Madhva Sampradaya. And he's only released 3 volumes so far. The Ramayana is given in 7 volumes, the first of which is Balkand, second of which is Ayodhya Kand, then Aranya Kand, Kishkinda Kand, Lanka Kand, Yudha Kand, and Uttar Kand. 7 different volumes. So far he's given us 3 volumes. And so I started to read this some years ago. I couldn't help but buy all 3 volumes at once. And I started to read it, and it is so beautiful. Like hearing the commentaries, like how, and I'll give some examples of it, like this in the little presentation I'll give today based on this pastime of Visvamitra asking for Ram from Dasharath. So, without further ado, let us go in a bit. Let us wet our feet a little bit. So the first thing Valmiki does when giving the pastimes of Ram is he glorifies the Ramayana. He summarizes the entire Ramayana in 1 chapter. He summarizes the entire thing. And at the end of it, he glorifies what is the benefit of listening to even this brief description of the pastimes of Lord Ram. He says, Idam pavitram pagnam punyam vedaischa sammitam yapatid ramacharitam sarva papai pramuchyati. Now I'll tell you one thing, if I could have sing, I would have sing the verses. Just like, but I was not so blessed in this life. So I'll just recite the Sanskrit as best as I could. So Valmiki Muni says, after summarizing the entirety of Ramayana, he says this brief description of the activities of Lord Ram is purifying. It destroys sinful reactions. It is auspicious. It is just like the Vedas. And he who studies it will be fully liberated from sinful reactions. So even if you're looking for some benefit other than loving Lord Ram, then Ramayana is a good place to go. It benefits us even on a mundane level by freeing us from sinful reactions and so on. Then he says, Atad akyanam ayushyam patan ramayanam naraha saputra pautra sanganaha pretya swarge mahiyate. He says, a man studying this Ramayana narration that grants vital power will become honored in the supreme abode after the final destruction of his body along with his sons, grandsons, dependents, and friends. So listen, just by studying this Ramayana, what is the benefit? We become honored in the abode of Ram. Not just ourselves, but those who are in connection to that person. What does it mean to be honored? It means when one enters into the spiritual kingdom of Ram, he gets a form similar to that of Ram, the Acharya's comment. Full in opulence, beauty, just like Ram. And he's honored there. There's this beautiful description of how even Lord Ram becomes attracted to hearing his own activities in Ramayana. We heard descriptions of Krishna when he was in Dwarka. He would look at his reflection in the jeweled pillars of Dwarka, and the floor was so pristine that you could see your reflection in the floor. And he would want to know, who is that looking back at me? He's so good looking. He is so nice. And then he would realize, oh, that is me. So similarly, Ram becomes attracted hearing his glories, his own glories. So before we come to this recap, I'll give some setting of how Valmiki composes the Ramayana. Valmiki began working on the Ramayana 40 years after the appearance of Ram. He was given the benediction by Lord Brahma that he would be able to envision everything that already happened from the appearance of Lord Ram till now, events that would have happened before Lord Ram's appearance, and he would also be able to envision events that are yet to come. He was given that benediction by Lord Brahma. Even that, how he got that benediction, is a beautiful story in itself. The transformation that Valmiki underwent as an individual. But while after he composed the Ramayana, he understood that this Ramayana is not just to be spoken, it has to be sung. It has to be sung in the right. And one of the things that I appreciated, like there are certain verses that describe certain things, have to be sung in certain tunes. Like there's certain tunes that would fit that. Why? Because what is being described has to evoke a certain emotion within the hearer and the singer. And therefore, particular melodies are chosen. I'll give you an example in our own culture. The meter that the Chaitanya Charitamrita verses are composed in is like a standard, simple Bengali poetic meter. Very simple. Most of Chaitanya Charitamrita is in that meter. And if you look, most of our bhajans are also in that same poetic meter. But the same verses, the same meter, sung in different songs, we'll sing in different tunes. And there's one particular tune that we sing when we sing the bhajan, Sarparsha Janata Viraha Vila, song that is sung on the occasion of the departure from this world of a Vaishnava, Jayanilo. Hardly likely will hear that tune being sung another, the Jayanilo tune. You won't sing that bhajan in other melodies. You'll always sing it in this particular melody. One devotee, very expert Kirtaniya from Bengal, he was telling me this Kamal Gopal Prabhu, he was telling me this in Mayapur 20-something years ago. He was saying, because when we sing this bhajan and this melody, we have to cry. The tune is meant to evoke a deep sense of separation from the devotee who has departed, from the Vaishnavas, the great acharyas who have left our company. It's meant to bring out that emotion from within the consciousness. So Valmiki, he thought, the people who I entrust this Ramayana to cannot be ordinary people, just some hired singers, some Bollywood singers, some entertainers. On one level, Ramayana is entertainment. But Ramayana is more than that. And therefore, to bring out the full effect of Ramayana, it has to be given to the right people. It has to be entrusted to the right persons who can evoke that consciousness within the hearer, who themselves experience that consciousness. And who did Valmiki Muni choose? Lava and Kusha. And who were they? Lord Ram's sons. And he spent a great deal of time training them how to sing the rendition of the Ramayana. And then he let them out into the world. Go and sing the glories of Ram anywhere you go. Let's go forth. And they were going from different places to different places, singing. And wherever they would go, everybody would leave what they were doing and come just to listen to them sing the pastimes of Lord Ram. And one sage gave them the blessing that one day, my dear sons, you will get the benefit of singing for the pleasure of that person who this Ramayana is composed to glorify. In other words, you would get the benediction of singing the Ramayana directly in the presence of Ram. And after some time traveling, they did come to Ayodhya. They did come to Ayodhya, and they began to sing the pastimes of Ram in the presence of Ram. So everybody left. Ram, his throne was a certain height, several steps above the general audience. And as Lava and Kush began to sing, everyone became completely enthralled hearing these descriptions of the pastimes of Ram. Lord Ram, he was listening to this and saw that all his ministers, everybody who was around him, left him. And they went, going closer and closer to Lava and Kush. Lord Ram, feeling alone and feeling so attracted, he very carefully held on to his jewelry so as not to make any sound, and very stealthily went down into the audience, closer and closer to Lava and Kush, where the singing was taking place, and sat right in the midst of all his subjects. And as the singing was going on, they looked back to see what was Lord Ram's reaction, and they didn't see Ram. They didn't see Ram, and they couldn't appreciate that Lord Ram was sitting right next to them, completely incognito. He was so attracted to hearing his own glories being sung. So this is the nature of the pastimes of Ram. So Valmiki Muni, this is the first part, the introduction to Ramayana, where he summarizes it and gives the description of how it came to be composed and how Lava and Kush were entrusted with the Ramayana, how even Lord Ram became attracted. And then the scene shifts and he describes Ayodhya, he describes Lanka, and finally he comes to describing Dasharath's great longing. That Dasharath, 60,000 years of Dasharath's life had passed. And Dasharath, despite having 353 wives, normally we only hear about the 3 wives of Dasharath, right? There's a whole pastime of how we had the other 350 that's described. We know about the 3 principal wives. Despite having all these wives, 3 of which were principal, one thing was missing. He had no son. He had no son. He had no son. He had everything. A huge feast in front of him. And this feast was so beautiful to look at. It was very beautifully presented. But not one preparation had salt. The one thing that was missing that would give complete flavor to Dasharath's life was not there. He had no son. And he was trying and trying and trying. And he made a fervent endeavor. on the advice of Vashishta and his other advisors, with the help of a sage known as Rishya Shringa, he performed a yagya known as the Putra Kameshti Yagya. And having performed that yagya successfully, a great personality emerged from within the sacred fire and presented Dasharath with a vessel containing, some people say nectar, Valmiki Muni specifically says payasham, sweet rice. And he's advised, distribute this amongst your 3 principal queens. And he does that. He divides the sweet rice into half, and he gives half to Kaushalya. He then divides it into another half, so it means 1/4, and he gives 1/4 to Sumitra. He then divides what was remaining into half once more, and he gives one of those portions, 1/8, to Kaikeyi, and then the other 1/8 he gives again to Sumitra. So in this way, his 3 principal wives receives the fruit of this yagya. Kaushalya ate her portion very respectfully, and even though Sumitra received her portion before Kaikeyi, as soon as that payasham hit the hands of Kaikeyi, she immediately devoured it. And Sumitra, who was very docile, very respectful, with great attention, she respected the remnants of the yagya. And then, immediately after eating this sacred elixir that was produced from this yagya, they immediately became pregnant. By the consumption of this prasad, all of them became pregnant. Kaushalya became pregnant with Ram. Kaikeyi became pregnant with Bharat, and Sumitra, Lakshmana, and Shatrughna. Valmiki Muni describes that 6 seasons would pass in Ayodhya. What are 6 seasons? Meaning 1 year. 1 year would pass in Ayodhya, and then one by one, within a day, the sons would be born. And the sons appeared in the order in which they ate the prasad. So Kaushalya honored her prasad first, and Ram was born. He was born on the navami day under the constellation Punarvasu in the month of Chaitra. After some time passed, Bharat was born on the Dasami day under the constellation Pushyami. And then I think Lakshmana and Shatrughna were also born under Pushyami and Dasami. The constellation under which the Lord appeared was also described. And then, so Dasharath has his dream fulfilled, the boys appear, and then, interestingly, he begins to make preparations for their education. They do the name-giving ceremony. There's beautiful descriptions of the names that were given by Vashishta to the brothers. Then description is given within a few verses of how they began to be educated. They received Vedic teachings, training in logic, training in philosophy, and most importantly, administrative classes and martial classes, classes in the martial arts. This is described in about 10 verses. From the time the Lord appears to the time the Lord is receiving his education, Dasharath begins to think, now I have to get wives for them. I have to get them married. And as soon as Dasharath thinks that I have to get wives for my sons, now what happens? Visvamitra arrives at the kingdom. As soon as he's thinking, and Valmiki Muni describes Tasya chintanamanasya mantri madhye mahatmanaha abhyagachan mahateja Visvamitra Mahamuni. He says that while that great soul Dasharat was contemplating about it, meaning his son's marriages, in the midst of his ministers, the great sage Visvamitra, who was of great prowess, arrived. So Visvamitra, his name has two meanings. The first meaning is Visvamitra, one who is Mitra or friend of Vishwa, the entire creation, the entire universe. The second meaning is Vishwa Amitra, one who is not a friend of the entire creation. Why? We won't have time, but his history demonstrates that. And when Visvamitra appeared there, everyone who saw him was immediately thrilled, but also a bit nervous that this sage has come. They were thrilled and also nervous. So the attendants at the gate immediately came to the court of Dasharat and advised him that Visvamitra has come. Dasharat, understanding that this great personality has come, he immediately steps down from his throne and goes to meet Visvamitra. He offers him arghya for worship, as is normally done. Even when we do puja, one of the things we do is offer arghya. Hastayo arghyam, and then the name of the deity. We offer water for worship. That's part of puja. So Dasharat, he comes down from his throne. He advances forward. He offers his obeisances to Visvamitra. He offers him arghyam. He offers him words of praise. And he says that, my dear sage, your arrival is like the attainment of nectar. He says, my dear sage, your arrival in my kingdom is like a shower of rain in a place that has long suffered immense drought. He says, the joy I am experiencing that you have come to my kingdom is like that of a sonless man who is now attaining a son after a long while from a loving wife. He says, my dear sage, your visit to my kingdom is like the attainment of a lost treasure, or the delight that one experiences during one's son's wedding celebrations. So interestingly, all of this has directly to do with Dasharat. Has directly to do with Dasharat. Dasharat, after performing the yagya, what did he receive? The nectar. Because this would give him his sons. After 60,000 years, finally, he got the happiness of what it would mean to have a son. Dasharat, there was one time Shani had cast his glance over Ayodhya, and Ayodhya became afflicted with a drought that lasted for over 12 years. Not a drop of rain fell. And Dasharat, he fought against Shani, and rain was restored to Ayodhya. So Dasharat also experienced drought as king of Ayodhya. And what was Dasharat contemplating on before Visvamitra came? The wedding of his sons. He was contemplating that Valmiki Muni describes. And he says, I'm feeling all these things, and therefore, O sage, because I'm feeling such joy, my place has now become auspicious. Please tell me how I can serve you. Do not doubt my ability, my dear sage, to fulfill your purposes. I will do all that you require. I will do anything that you require. This is a very important thing for us to learn from. Very, very important, because Dasharath didn't know what Visvamitra would ask for. He didn't know. So an important lesson we can learn here. But let's hear Visvamitra's request. Very beautiful verse. Swaputram Raja Shardula Ramam Satya Parakramam Kakapakshadaram Shuram Jeshtam Me Datum Arhasi. He says, my dear Dasharath, I am very pleased to hear of your offer. And right now in my ashram, I am undergoing a yajna. But the rites of this yajna enjoin that I cannot display anger. I cannot express violence. And this yajna is under constant attack by two demons who especially come out at night. And especially when we begin the ceremony, they litter the entire ceremonial ground with all manners of unclean items. These demons are Maricha and Subahu. I have 10 nights in which to successfully complete this yajna, as is stipulated in the prayoga, or the method for the performance of this yajna. It is my desire, my dear Dasharath, O tiger among kings, you should give me your eldest son, Ram. Though he is a mere boy with side locks, with his hair coming down on the side of his ears, he is fixed on truthfulness and very heroic. So this is a theme, and several verses Visvamitra would express to Dasharath that he wants Ram. And he's very specific. He says, Jeshta me datum arhasi, your oldest son. That is who I want. You don't know who your oldest son is? In another verse he would say, Atmajam datum arhasi. I want you to give me that one who is dearest to your heart, who is your very life. Atmajam datum arhasi. That is the one who I am asking for. And if you still are not sure of whom I am speaking, Ramam datum arhasi. I want you to give me Ram. And Ram is standing right there. Kakapakshadaram Shuram. Just see, he has not yet groomed his hair. He is still in training. And his locks are still tressing down the sides of his face. That is the one I want. I want Ram. This is why I have come to your kingdom. So one of the lessons we can learn from this, we should never make decisions when we are emotionally charged, whether positively or negatively. We can land ourselves into some serious difficulty. Why? Because oftentimes we overestimate our ability to deliver and risk damaging relationships. It's very, very dangerous. I find personally it is better to underextend but over-deliver. Promise less but give more, than it is to promise more but give less. Why? Because when we promise more but give less, what happens? Trust is lost. Respect is lost. When we promise beyond our capacity to fulfill realistically, relationships become disturbed. And one of the key foundational principles of any relationship is trust. This person always says they will do X, But every time is a story. And sometimes you want to hear, yes, I will come, I will do this, sure, 100%. And then after a few times the person not delivering, then you ask them for something. Well, one thing, because you keep asking, then you have a problem also. If you keep asking the same person and expecting a different result. But on the other side is when they do come, then you could say, wait, if you're going to give me a story, at least have the courtesy to start with once upon a time. At least have that much courtesy. But when we under-promise and over-deliver, trust becomes stronger. Respect increases. And relationships become stronger. So Dasharath, he becomes very disturbed when he hears this terrible request of Visvamitra. One of the names that Visvamitra calls Ram when he's asking for him is, yes, I want you to give me. One of the things he says, Rama Satya Parakramam. He says, Rama Rajiva Lochanam. That Ram, he is Satya Parakramam. He's not ordinary, he's extraordinary. He is Satya. He is rooted in eternal power. He is not of this world, he is beyond this world. Satya Parakramam. But at the same time, my dear Dasharath, his eyes are so beautiful. He is Rajiva Lochana. Dasharath, when he hears this request of Visvamitra, Dasharath faints. He faints. He remains unconscious for one muhurta. One muhurta means 48 minutes. Just the shock of it. You could imagine, I can't remember how it was now, but I could imagine, everybody looks at these Bollywood type soap operas and the way they do things in Indian movies, right? You could imagine when Dasharath hears Visvamitra's request, and you would hear, you hear the sound effect, and then you see the camera shift. It will shift to Visvamitra, and they'll do a close-up on the face. They will shift back to Dasharath, and they'll do a close-up on the face. They will shift to Ram, and then they'll shift to this minister, shift to Vashishta, just moving left, right, and then the episode would end. The episode would end, and then you have to wait till the other week to see what happens next. And then when the episode starts, you'll see the camera goes up to Dasharath's face, and then it goes to Visvamitra's face. And when it looks back at Dasharath is lying down on the ground. He's fainted. In Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 3rd canto, there's a similar description. When Vidura is traveling and he comes to Vrindavan, he meets Uddhava. And he begins to question Uddhava about the goings on in Dwarka and about Krishna, about Krishna's devotees. And Uddhava, when he hears the questions of Vidura, he faints. For how long? 48 minutes. No, he fainted for more, I think 3 hours. And gradually he came back to consciousness. So gradually, Dasharath, he regains his consciousness. And he speaks this verse to Visvamitra. He says, Unasho dasha varsho me, Ramo Rajiva Lochana. Na yudha yogyatam asya, pashyami saharakshase. He says, my lotus-eyed Ram is not even 16 years old. I do not find him eligible to go for war with the Rakshasas. Unasho dasha varsho. My Ram is not even 16 years old. How old was Ram when Visvamitra came to Ayodhya? Some commentators say not just almost 16. At this point in time, when Visvamitra comes to Ayodhya, Ram was only 12. Why? Because Ram got married when he was 12. And at the end of Visvamitra taking Ram, what happens at the end of Balkan? The wedding of Sita and Ram. That is the culmination of Balkan. So Ram was 12. Later also, when after Subahu and Marich were defeated and they went back to report to Ravana, and Marich is telling Ravana, this boy, he was only 12 years old and he completely defeated us. He was only 12. So Dasharatha is saying, Unasho Dasha Varsho Me. He's not even 16, he's only 12 years old. Why do you want him to fight with these seasoned Rakshasas? He is Rajiva Lochana. The quality of a lotus flower is that when the sun goes down, the lotus flower closes. Similarly, my Ram, when the sun goes down, he goes to sleep. He's a young boy. His eyes also close, just like a lotus flower closes when the sun goes down. I do not find him eligible. Now Yogyatam, he cannot fight with these Rakshasas. He cannot fight with these Rakshasas. But previously, Valmiki Muni also called Ram Rajiva Lochana. Dasharat, when he is saying Rajiva Lochana, he's saying he's just a child. When the sun goes down, his eyes closes, he goes to sleep. Visvamitra, when he is saying Ram is Rajiva Lochana, he's saying just as the sun, when it comes out, the lotus flower immediately blossoms. Similarly, when Ram opens his eyes, it is opened with the brilliance of the sun. And any demon who comes in front of him, just as when the sun comes out, the darkness immediately becomes dispelled. Similarly, when Rams, whose eyes are as beautiful as a lotus, when those lotus eyes open, there is no demon that can stand in front of him. Visvamitra, he is speaking from a position of knowing who Ram is. The same phrase, Rajiva Lochana, when Dasharat uses it, is because he is completely overwhelmed with affection for Ram. When Visvamitra using it, he is confident of the power of Ram. And therefore, Dasharat, because of his affection, he expresses great reluctance. He says he's Rajiva Lochana. He goes to sleep when the sun goes down. Do not take Ram. He is just one young boy. Take my entire army and myself. I will go personally and assist you. Whatever demons you need killed, no problem. 2 demons, I will take my entire army. And we will go and deal with this matter. Take me. Visvamitra wasn't interested in quantity. Visvamitra was interested in quality. Now we hear, there's this beautiful pastime, I was listening. There's this joke one time that Sita Devi made with Ram. She says, for so long we've been walking in this forest, and you have this bow on your shoulder. Is that a bow only for decoration, or do you actually have use for it? So there's one time, then shortly after that, Ram would fight, 14,000 demons? It was 14,000 demons came to attack. And Lakshmana said, let me go immediately and take care of this disturbance. Ram said, no, let me go and deal with this. Lakshmana said, but I live for your service. You do not need to do this. This is insignificant. Let me go and deal with these demons. Ram said, no, this is a family affair. I have a matter to settle here. So Ram goes out And it's described that the prowess with which Ram shot these arrows, in less than an hour, he killed 14,000 demons. And Sita Devi admitted, okay, you have proven your point. Your point is understood, clearly received. So, the Visvamitra is interested in Ram because he knows of Ram's prowess. He has no interest in Dasharath's army and even Dasharath's capability. But finally, Dasharath admits, if you take Ram, my dear Visvamitra, I will not survive. I will not survive. I waited for 60,000 years to get this son. If he is taken from me, I will die. Therefore, please do not take my Ram. And just as Visvamitra was saying, Jeshta me datum arhasi, again and again, Dasharath is saying, Ramam, don't take him. Ramam na dhatum arhasi, I think he is saying. Please do not take my Ram. Please do not take my Ram. Repeatedly, do not take my Ram. And he gives I cannot give you Ram. I will not give you. He says firmly, I will not give you Ram. And Visvamitra, of course, like there's one lesson I wanted to bring out here, is that sometimes when we have affection, it blinds us to the reality of a particular situation. And oftentimes, due to affection, it can inhibit the growth of our dependence. Visvamitra was saying, Ram is not meant for Ayodhya. Ram is meant for the world. By your trying to keep Ram within Ayodhya, is like trying to contain the ocean within a small vessel. You are trying to keep the ocean within a small vessel. But Ram is meant for the entire world. You have to release him from Ayodhya. And not only will the world benefit, but the glory of Ayodhya will increase also. You know, sometimes they say that the worst person to coach somebody is their own parents. You have to sometimes entrust that to a third party, because they will do what is necessary. Out of affection, parent might say, give them a chance, and it's okay. You know, don't have to run so hard. But the coach will push them beyond that limit. Similarly, blinded by affection, Dasharath wanted to keep Ram within his eyesight. It says, if you take Ram, I will die. And Visvamitra, when he hears this, he says, Purvam artam pratishritya pratigyanam hatum ichasi ragavana mayuktoyam kulas yasya viparyaya. He says, you first promised me that you will fulfill my request, and now you want to break that promise? Such breaking of promises is inappropriate for the dynasty of Raghu's descendants. In the next verse, in a very sarcastic way, he said, if you desire to keep Ram, then so be it. But dear king, may you remain in Ayodhya and be happy with your family. And he turns to walk off. It's described by Valmiki Muni. When Visvamitra says, may you be happy with your relatives, with your family, the Devatas began to tremble in the heavenly planets. Because he's Visvamitra. He's not a friend. His anger became very apparent. And at that point in time, Vashishta steps in. Vashishta steps in. He reminds Dasharath that, my dear king, you come from a great heritage. You are a descendant of Ikshvaku, of Amshuman. you have a reputation to uphold? How will it reflect on your dynasty that you are the first person who has given his word and then broken it? This will bring shame. And for a Kshatriya, shame is a result worse than death. How can you accept that? He says, my dear king, you are dharma personified. You are the very embodiment of dharma. Raghu's descendants are famous as those who carry out dharma or righteousness. Will you now go back on that tradition of becoming a representative of adharma? Will you do that? You should understand that what Visvamitra said was correct. Ram is not ordinary. Ram is Satya Parakramam. He is glorious. Even if Ram is untrained, there is no demon that can defeat him. Whether he has training or not, there is no demon that can withstand Ram. And even if you don't have confidence in Ram, then you should understand that Visvamitra also is not ordinary. Visvamitra, if he deems it fit, he will abandon his yajna and destroy any demon that is threatening the safety of Ram. He is potent. He is not ordinary. And therefore, my dear king, for your benefit, the benefit of Ayodhya, the benefit of the world, and for the pleasure of Visvamitra, you should give Ram to him. And Dasharatha, he composes himself. It's very important that as individuals, we have someone outside of ourselves who can give us pertinent advice. One of the most dangerous places we can live in is our own echo chamber, where we surround ourselves only with people who have the same opinions as us. Sometimes the most important person we can have in our life is somebody who can give us honest feedback that we may not like to hear. If we don't have anybody like that in our life, we are setting ourselves up for disaster. It is very dangerous to live inside of our own heads or to surround our people that only have the same opinion as us. On Visvamitra, who was very much respected by, when Vashishta, who was very much respected by Maharaj Dasharatha, advises the king as such, he agrees. And he places the hand of Ram into the hand of Visvamitra. And standing right next to Ram is Lakshman. If you take Ram, then you have to take Lakshman, because they are inseparable. There's a package deal. You asked for Ram, I was reluctant, but not only will I give you Ram, I'll give you a bonus also. I'll give you Lakshman. They are inseparable. They are inseparable. And then the whole Balkan unfolds. In fact, Balkan begins when Visvamitra comes to Ayodhya. And if you want to know more about that, the next time I give a Ramayana Katha, then you will hear why Balkan begins when Visvamitra comes to Ayodhya. So with that, I would like to thank you very much for your kind attention. And unfortunately, we have no time for any questions or discussion. We have the arati. I was graciously given 15 minutes extra, pre-arranged by Mother Panchatattva. So also we are very grateful to the Sri Sri Radha Gopinath, Sri Sri Gaurnitai for indulging us for the extra 15 minutes. Srila Prabhupada as well. हरे कृष्णा। श्री रामचंद्र भगवान की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय।
Oh, it was worth it. It was nice. Hare Krishna, Krishna